Okay.
What am I trying to do?
Okay, we're in five, four. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social, and I'm on Facebook, Santita Jackson and Friends. That's the only place where I can get new friends, everybody. So many of you keep going to Santita Jackson, and I am touched by it, but they kick people off. I'm losing like 1,000 of you a week. Please, please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. Please, please, please. And then what I'd like you to do is to like and subscribe to Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. I need to have you there. All right, all right, all right. And of course, I'm on X at Santita J, at Santita J. Came across some information, and we've been talking about the massive job losses that we're seeing all across the country. But Black women are being hit especially hard. According to the root, and this message, this information is coming from our government by Ashay Smith. The headlines say the job market is strong, but Black women know a different story. Over the past 3 months, in the past quarter, nearly 300,000, yes, I did say 300,000 Black women have been pushed out of the workforce, with more than 518,000 who never returned after the pandemic. Forced federal layoffs, Doge cuts, everybody, DEI rollbacks, structural inequities at play. This is what happened to us. The last hired, the first fired. That is what is happening. We didn't just lose these jobs, we were forced out of these jobs. Employment rates have remained steady for other groups of workers, somewhat steady, but not for Black women. Not for Black women. So let's talk about this, everybody, with, of course, the former head of the National Conference of Negro Women, but she is also Rainbow Push, first vice president. It never ends. We never stop working for Reverend Jesse Jackson, do we, Attorney Janice Mathis? No, no, we never do. You never, ever, ever, ever do. Bless her heart.
Whether you
Bless her.
want to or not, you will.
Oh no! When I first started working for Reverend, she called me in the office. She said, "I hope this will be a positive experience for you." I said, "Oh no, this is frightening. I don't know what is going to happen here, but I thank you for being my mentor. And of course, you, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, brilliant economist, president emeritus of Bennett College for Women. And what is going on with Black women? I mean, because when you read Black publications, what's interesting is that they don't say Black women lost jobs. Attorney Mathis, Dr. Malveaux. They say that we have been forced out, which is very, very, very different. Very different. So talk to me. What happened? 300,000 jobs in a quarter? That's a lot of jobs, Dr. Malvo.
Well, let's start with the federal layoffs. You know that African American women are more likely than many others to work for the federal government. More than 70,000 workers that we know of, because the numbers keep being added. Federal workers have been let go. A disproportionate number of them are Black women. In addition, the attacks on DEI, uh, which for me stands for definitely earned it, the attacks on DEI have meant that a disproportionate number of African American women in corporate America were working in DEI type functions. Many of these companies have just cut their DEI out. Some have moved people around, and that's a good thing. They didn't lose their paychecks, but many have lost their entire division. Many people have looked at corporate women, but you don't understand. You don't have a corporate Black woman sitting in an office without some sister sitting outside, the receptionist, the assistant, etc. So basically, what we know is that that man, Janice Santino, won't let me call the man what he needs to be called. I have to
That's
be
right.
quote respectful,
That's right.
whatever. Um, that man has had it in for Black people since he breathed air as a child. since his daddy started letting people out of apartments. But what we know now is that he came in talking other, and he's continued to talk other. I talked to a brother today who has done all this work on World War II. And what he said to me is, he said, "This is Nazism. You have to study it." He said, and you go after the most vulnerable first. The most vulnerable in our population has been undocumented people, as well as legal immigrants. Legal immigrants are being deported. But next low on the total poll, of course, is Black women. And so what we're seeing is a labor market that is now hostile to Black women. I sent you a column that I wrote, and Janice, I'll send it to you later. You fell off the grid, so I forgot about you for a minute. Just a minute. But the BLS report, the employment situation that came out on August 1st, which caused his major tantrum and him firing the commissioner of labor statistics because he didn't like the numbers. Well, what no one has talked about in terms of these numbers is Black women's employment population ratio crashing. In other words, in July of 24, it was 59%. Now it's 57.6, a 2% drop in employment population ratio. That's a percentage of the population that has a job. Now, for no other population, not white men, white women, Black men, have you seen such a drop? For most of them, the drop was 0.1%. If it was that, for white men, it was level. Theirs didn't drop at all. So what we're looking at is actually both the Black press and the majority press underreporting the status of Black women, which is not a new thing. We have always been invisible until they want to use us for something. What's that girl's name? Never mind. I'm not going to go ugly today. I've had a great day. So I'm not going to talk about that child. What's her name? Candace or something like that?
Owen. Yes.
Yeah. But so when they want to use them, they pull them out, they pull them out of the hat. But meanwhile, Black women are invisible. And because we're invisible, we have been neglected. And the data neglects us as well. But Santita, let me tell you what my
Are
fear
we
is.
wait, but let me ask you this. Are we invisible or are we being disappeared?
Both. Both.
Okay.
It's both. I mean, we are being disappeared. We're not being paid attention to. But the invisibility is a historical invisibility. They don't want to see us. And so, how many times have you seen? I mean, I remember years ago, this was a long time ago, but I've been living a long time. And what a blessing. I didn't think God was going to give me as much stuff as I've started. I thought it probably did go 15, 20 years ago. So I'm
No,
still,
don't even try it. You keep on going now. Come on.
oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, as much of this as I've started, I thought somebody was going to come get me. But I remember years ago when USA Today, Barbara Reynolds at that time was the editor there, and they did a piece on the editors, and Reynolds was missing. And I wrote them a letter saying, "Where is Barbara Reynolds?" And the man had the temerity to write me back and said, "Well, maybe she didn't come to work that day." Then I said, "Barbara, were you there that day?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "They took the picture when I was in the bathroom." So nobody thought to wait. I mean, how long can you be in the bathroom during the workday? Um, no one thought to wait. But this is a consistent way that Black women are treated. So yes, we're invisible, but also, I mean, I had back in the day. I've been reading some of my old columns, but I had one piece I read that said invisible, inferior, or exceptional. When you think about every time we talked about Black income, white people would talk about who? Oprah. Like if Oprah divided up all her money, all of us would have $3. But they would always, well, Oprah is a multi-millionaire, and 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 the Black unemployment rate is what? And let's be also clear about the Black unemployment rate. The white unemployment rate is 4.2. Ours is 7.5. Okay, used to be a 2 to 1. It's 1.7. But when you do, there's a table in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 815, where they talk about other measures of unemployment, counting the discouraged workers, uh, the people who are part time and want to be full time. We add all that up. The worst case scenario for everybody is that the ratio is about 7% for everybody. But for Black people, then I have this thing called the Malvo multiplier. Well, the Malvo multiplier basically says it's 13.5% for Black people. And I didn't tease it out for Black women yesterday because I was writing a column. But the point is that the data are always faulty. They often, especially for us, underreport. But this man fires this woman, one of the most pleasant and non-confrontational labor economists that you would ever know, fires her because he don't like the numbers. And what scares me, Santita, is he can fire someone because they don't like the numbers. You can manipulate the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I've been living a long time. So I remember in 1982 when Ronald Reagan decided he wanted to include the prison population as employed in the unemployment rate. You can laugh now, Janice, because it's funny. You want to put the prison population, in order to make the unemployment rate look lower, you're going to count from the prison population as employed. Well, he got major pushback from all kind of economists, conservative ones, liberal, and he didn't do it. But that's how you can manipulate if you choose to change the definitions.
But
And
maybe
people
we should
like
have left.
this man can do that.
Maybe we should have left them alone because they are employees. They're just poorly paid. They're like slave wages, right? I mean, think about it. It's just
No, 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 no.
no. I'm just
Unemployment rate comes from the non.
no. I'm yanking your chain. I'm yanking your chain. But I mean, I think it's shameful that they use prison labor. Remember, they were making Victoria's Secret in prison,
Oh
for
yeah.
example. I mean,
Well,
but
they had prisoners in California answering the DMV phone calls when you called to renew your license.
yes.
Somebody realized that was dangerous because the prisoners would have your address, and they weren't going to be in prison forever.
Janice Mathis saved me.
Well, when I was thinking, first of all, Santita, thank you for tackling this subject. And Dr. Melville, thank you for your expertise. But the remarkable consistency of antagonism toward Black folk in general and Black women in particular. I think that part of what we are seeing is a backlash against the Kamala Katanji effect. If Black women can push a Black woman onto the Supreme Court and a Black woman onto the ticket for the presidency, they deserve to be locked up from a racist point of view. And I think that's what we're seeing. Even in President Trump's first term, if you recall, he floated a proposition that federal agencies would be moved out of blue Maryland and blue Virginia and blue DC, moved to places like Wyoming and Wisconsin and places where there are not as many Black folk. The other thing we have to keep in mind, and I know I have no business talking about numbers when Dr. Melville is on the call, but we're what, about 13% of the population. We Black folk about 13% of the population, but we make up about 20% of federal employees. So if you want to decimate Black families, particularly Black middle class families, it makes sense in a perverse kind of way to go after federal employees because 2 federal jobs in a household can buy a house and pay for it. 2 federal jobs in a household can send children to college without debt. And so if you have an antagonism toward middle class, uppity Black folk getting degrees and advanced degrees and making strides, well, then it makes a certain kind of perverse sense to target them. When this all started, I guess about a month, this was first of June when I first heard about this targeting of Black women, I went looking for a story because I think the stories tell us a lot. There's a Black woman named Quay Crowner who had been in the Department of Education for a decade. Her current job had nothing to do with DEI, yet she was dismissed. What she was actually doing was helping young people of every color and ethnicity apply for things like Pell Grants and college admission. And that made her a target. She wasn't doing anything about DEI. She wasn't singling out Black kids. She was helping kids get an education. That put her on the target list. This sister, though, hired a lawyer and filed suit. And at this point, it's not clear that her job will not be restored to her. So I think the lesson in it all is that we are targeted. we're targeted in part because we are knowledgeable and effective. And I guess we should take that as a compliment. But the other thing is, if Black women can be targeted, what happens to our families? What happens to the guarantees of a civil service? The reason we have civil service employees, people like, you think what you want about Mary McLeod Bethune, but that was her constant refrain with Roosevelt and Truman, that Black folk would get equal opportunity to be employed by their government. And to some extent, we have succeeded in that. And that makes Black women, unfortunately, a target of racist and sexist retaliation. So I'm glad to see a sister like Ms. Crowner, who's willing not to capitulate, but to fight. And I think what we have to say in this time to each other and to people who are affected, that we're going to stand in the fight with you. So the Lawyers Committee, the Legal Defense Fund, and other civil rights type organizations that do litigation are standing up to make sure that these women are not in the fight alone. It is a difficult time in America.
It is a difficult time.
And,
So,
it's
so
not
what
clear
do you
yet
say?
how this is going to turn out.
Yeah, but what do you say? I mean, because it seems that as
What was your question?
as we've been entering the employment space, we've been tracked. We were put in DEI. We were put in. We had to go into the government sector. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you know, like I've had several friends who were in flight school in the Air Force, right? And the Black guys, they noticed they were always getting a trident, literally the night before they get their wings. I know you've heard this because you're down in the South, and being from South Carolina, you know it's military, heavily military, and it seems like we get these opportunities, but then we're put in spaces where we're the last hired and the first fired.
Yep.
And, you know, so I'm like, what are we to do right now? Because as soon as they gutted DEI, you saw at least 3 or 4 major Black corporate figures. They were all women. They lost their jobs like on the same day.
You know, the other piece, Santita, that's important to note regarding federal jobs. As Janice said, you can say what you want about black women more than any other group does better in the public sector than in the private sector. In other words, if you look at the percentage.
Hold on one moment. Dr. Malvo,
Yes,
I want
ma'am.
you to go out and come back in because we're getting feedback.
All righty, I can do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure how. But
No, you just go out, and you know what? I'm going to remove you from the stage, and okay, we'll bring you back up. Okay, Dr. Malvo.
I'm going to restart my computer.
No, I got you now.
Oh,
great. It just worked out. Okay.
Okay, I don't have you.
No, but I have you.
Okay, let me see what I do.
Okay. Well, you know, in the meantime, Attorney Mathis, I mean, what do you tell
One of my young people.
these young people?
Here I am.
Okay, no, you need to go out and come back.
I can't hear you.
Okay, go out and come back in.
Go out and come back in.
Yeah, just hang up. There we go. But because she's still there, and there we go. Janice, what do you tell young people?
I think,
and what do you tell, I mean, in particular, and then women of a certain age, in their 30s, 40s, and their 50s?
you know, Santita, I think it's important what we tell them because we've seen some of this before, but it's also important what they are telling us. And what they're telling us, I was on the phone today with the gentleman who had been Dean of Graduate Students at Clark Atlanta. Clark Atlanta can bring in about 1,600 students a year. They had 70,000 applications. So what they're telling us is they want to be in environments where they are valued. They want to be around people who understand their talents and want to help develop them. They are marching with their feet back to traditional institutions like your alma mater, like North Carolina A&T, like FAMU, in South Carolina State because there is an acceptance. There is a willingness to see them for the talented, engaged individuals and future professionals that they are. It is not a time to give up. If there was ever a time, and I'm gonna borrow a phrase, to keep hope alive, that time is now. And I think in some ways, this gentleman was telling me, the dean at Clark Atlanta was telling me that the phrase he hears most often from his students is authenticity. They're looking for authentic experience, authentic opportunities. They don't want to have things sugar coated. They want the facts, and they have the confidence to build the kind of careers and even the kind of society that they want to see. The reason I'm still working at 70, 3 square years and 10, is because I have grandchildren. I have a grandson who's 12 and taller than I am, and he's got ambitions already. He's got things he wants to do. And so we can't afford to lay down the gauntlet and give up in spite of all the slings and arrows and the intersectional quandaries that we're put into. I think the children are leading us, and they're telling us we want authentic leadership, and we want to be among people who value and respect us. Now, that experience is not for everyone, but for those who are choosing it, I think we have nothing to do but to support them.
Well, now,
and let me say this too,
yeah.
and Julianne, you can correct me. We got wedged into pink collar jobs to begin with, even when we went into federal service. We didn't go into federal service as assistant secretaries or directors of offices. We went into federal service as helpers, as people who sorted the mail. We saw the movie. We saw what happened with the women who were the what do they call them? The calculators, the human.
Oh, hidden figures. Oh, yeah.
The women who knew more about math, they could put men into space.
Hidden figures.
Now, our talents have always been undervalued, but essential.
If you look at your point, Janice, is very well made, because in federal service, a disproportionate number of Black women who had college degrees worked as clerical workers.
Yeah.
They had college degrees, but they were not hired on the professional track. They were hired.
That's correct.
And even in the overall economy, we saw a disproportionate number of Black women with college degrees working as clerical workers. At one point, I believe that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but something like 1 in 3 Black women who were college educated were working as secretaries, because those were the only jobs they could get. Now, that changed. My mentor, Dr. Phyllis Wallace, who wrote a book that I contributed to as a baby economist, but it was called Black Women in the Labor Force. And she had looked at how Black women got into federal government and also into basically out of clerical work and into GS5, GS6, GS7. Always, however, even though the pay level was better for Black women in government than in the private sector, what we always knew is that Black women were not ever treated equally to their white female counterparts. And it's a fascinating story. In fact, Santita, later on next month, I'm going to pitch a story for you, because I've got this brother who's got a documentary called Invisible Warriors, and it's about Black women in World War II. And Janice Mathis, you will be very interested to know that one of his anchor guests is, of course, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, who was very involved in making sure that Black women who were doing military work, there were Black Rosie the Riveters that we don't know about. But Dr. Height talked about that and fought to make sure these women were treated well, because white women so did not want Black women there that it's just like the Hidden Figure story. They protested in Seattle. They wanted a separate restroom for Black women, because they didn't believe that they were spreading lies, of course, that Black women carried venereal disease, and they would catch the venereal disease if they used the same toilet. And I think I said somewhere, I got in trouble for it. I said, well, it wouldn't be the toilet where they've been sleeping. And the host of that show said, "You can't come back." I said, "Oh well, I've been put out in better places." But it's the truth. I mean, in terms of how Black women were treated, even in the war effort, treated differentially by our federal government, and they seem to think it was okay. So I'm going to pitch this brother to you, Lady Santita, because you'll love him. I spent about an hour today talking to him because I'm going to bring him on radio in a couple weeks. But there's so much of our history that's hidden in terms of the way we've been treated. So some people think that Trump is the worst thing we've ever seen. Try Woodrow Wilson, who decimated Black federal employees when he became president. Daniel Murray is one of the stories that it makes me cry. The brother was the assistant librarian of Congress. He had advanced that way. Members of Congress relied on him. He knew the Library of Congress back and forth. They demoted him. He had a choice: take the demotion or go. He took the demotion, of course, because he needed the job. Where else was he going to get one? But it rankled with him, and he actually lived right in my neighborhood. And very interesting brother. But his story has been told because historians have told it. But there were hundreds of Black federal employees. Imagine, we're talking the early 20th century now. These folks had to bust their hind parts to get these jobs. And then Woodrow Wilson comes in and says, "Bye, y'all." And we have the same thing now. But people if you don't know history, you will repeat it. And that's why so many people crack me up when they're like, "Oh, I didn't think he was going to do that." Read Project 2025. Or as I told you, Santita, I told you, Janice, about my little neighbor, Latina lady, who told me she couldn't vote for Kamala because she didn't know anything about the economy. Okay, there's a whole bunch of in between stuff here. I did cuss her out. I couldn't help it. I'm walking up. We're walking together to go vote. We voted the same place, and she said, what can you tell me to make me want to vote for Kamala?" And I gave her a bunch of stuff. She said, "I think I'm still gonna vote for Trump." I said, "Okay, whatever." 2 months later, I'm going to the gym. Or 3 months, he had been installed. I'm going to the gym. She said, "Can we walk together?" I'm like, "You could catch up with me. I'm not stopping for you." Um, Trying to be halfway civil. Girlfriend said, "I heard you know everybody. You know Eleanor Holmes Norton. You know this one. You know that one. Can you call them for me?" I said, "What's up?" "My cousin just got deported." I said, "You want me to use a political chit for you when you told me who you voted for?" I said, "Call Marjorie Taylor Greene or somebody like that. Some Republican." I said, so she cried to another neighbor and said I was mean. I said, "Well, that part has been established. But why am I going to help you when you told me who you voted for?" There are a whole lot of these people, they didn't believe that fat meat was greasy. And because they didn't believe fat meat was greasy, now they choking on their own grease. I mean, it is just amazing how many people are complaining about what he's done who voted for him. Now, the rest of us knew, you know.
But but what we have to look at is that there's also a lot of anti-Black racism out here, and we need to be honest about that. And we're having a moment in which we're having to confront some uncomfortable truths. The anti-Black racism um, in the Hispanic community with our Hispanic brothers and sisters is very real. You look at Telemundo and Univision, you don't see us there. But when you go to South and Central America, we're all over the place. More Black people were sent down there than were brought up here to the United States and to Canada, certainly United States. So we have to really understand what we're looking at and maybe find another way, because looking at these corporate jobs, I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Malvo. Janice Mathis, that was never the shot. I met Kevin Garnett, his mother, the great basketball player. And it turns out, I did not know, that she was trained as a beautician by my grandmother, Helen. Because my grandmother Helen, I didn't even realize that she believed in independent business. And this was a way because she was like a lay social worker, and she trained a lot of Black women in Greenville, South Carolina. train them not only how to do hair, but how to open their business and to be able to sustain themselves. Even though my grandmother was married to a postal worker, and by the time my grandparents kind of got on their feet, they were okay. But she kept on going. Talk to me, Janice, because it seems like I don't know a broke hairdresser in our community. I don't know a broke cook in our community. I mean, these things that we have shunned are still the ways. I mean, what is when you look at Paula Dean, when you look at Martha Stewart, they're doing what we do, what we've done. I mean, no shade. I mean, help me. Janice, you got to unmute
We
yourself.
are.
Okay. And I
I
would
think I
ask
see
all
it.
of you to make sure you're only on one device, because that might be where we're getting the feedback from. Make sure that your phone is shut down. Make sure you're not on a computer and you're on two devices at once. But go on, Janice.
Even though we were sure less desirable occupations like beautician, you talk about never knew a broke beautician, never knew a broke mortician either. And we were shunted into that. But it was to our communities could be built. Not only did they have financial independence, they had political independence because they did not have to report to a job. They had created their own jobs. One of the wealthiest families in Greenville, South Carolina, that is African American, is a third generation mortician family. And so we have to say that yes, there were obstacles and there still are obstacles, but there was a certain kind of freedom in you could be a teacher, you could be a preacher, you could be a mortician, you could be a babysitter, cook, housekeeper. Um, the professions were very limited. But because the people wanted their families to survive, they were willing to do what was necessary in order to keep body and soul together. The other thing about federal service and government service in general, civil service protections are much more extensive in the public sector than they are in the private sector. In the public sector, you have a right to an appeal, you have a right to a review, you have a right to sue, you have an EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Some of those protections don't exist in the private industry, in corporate America. And that's another reason we see Black women and Black folk in general being boxed into you've been in the job 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, no promotion, insubstantial raises, but you can't afford to walk away from it because walk away from it and do what? When you're trying to put your children through college or your grandchildren through college or finish paying off their mortgage. And so we've had some difficult decisions to make, and we tend to make them on the side of practicality and reality. But I
Right.
don't think we should discount the political power that Black women have exerted over the past decade or so.
Well,
In some measure, um, for those who harbor racist tendencies, seeing a Black woman on the TV.
well, and I had to just bring this back up to you, Dr. Melville, when you brought up Woodrow Wilson. We have to remember sometimes who we're dealing with. You remember Birth of a Nation
Oh
was
yeah.
screened at his White House
Oh yeah.
because the filmmaker was his roommate at Princeton. And so, we need to understand, who and what we're dealing with and not be afraid. But I remember one of my girlfriends, I didn't, couldn't get a relaxer. So she and I would do each other's hair. She knew how to blow out my hair. I knew how to blow out her hair, no problem. But she became extremely good. So a lot of people would come and get their hair blown out, even if they had relaxers, because she could do it. But she never ever thought about going, and she loved doing it, but she never thought about going into that space. because everybody would want her to go into get a corporate job. And maybe we're almost being brought back to front, Attorney Janice Mathis and Dr. Malveaux. I'm not saying that you abandon getting a PhD. Oh boy, am I sounding like Booker T? But that's fine because I think Booker T and WEB both had their points and they were great. But you kind of blossom where you planted. And I think in this moment, as we're watching us hemorrhage these jobs, you have a lot of people who have a lot of talents and gifts, and they've got to be utilized. We can't let 300,000 plus people and more to come, because the cuts are really supposed to kick in November 2026. We haven't seen anything yet.
Well, one of the things one of the things though, Santita, I mean, I hear your point about working in non-professional jobs, but
No, I mean, I'm saying if that is your gift.
I if I had to, you see how much hair I have? If I had to dress hair, anybody who came to me would be bald.
But that's not your gift. But guess what? You're not gonna go somewhere and get a jacked up haircut either.
Oh no. But the well, like I said, I'm conceding your point, which is one that a lot of Black intellectuals argue: the WB versus the Booker T. But we should not yield space. I mean, people are losing jobs. People are being pushed out of jobs, as you said. There's the hard push, fire, the soft push, make your life so miserable that you choose to leave. And that's happening with a lot of people as well. So that's going on. But at the same time, 2026 is months away. We need to be resisting every way that we can. This crap that's going on in Texas, I know you talked to some of the Texas people. We need to be as supportive as we can. One of my friends who stays financially challenged called me early this morning and said, "Where can I send Jasmine Crockett $1,000?" Because I want to be something. She said, "I want to support her." Now, this sister, that picked up a check in her life because she always crying broke, but she could find $1,000 for Jasmine Crockett. We all need to do something like that. We cannot let this go down. We need to support. We need to make sure that there's so many people running for office that we surround them and support them. And it's not just, members of Congress. We need to look. I'm looking at Garland Gilchrist in Michigan, brother who's going to be running for governor. Amazing brother. I think he's some kind of an engineer by background. Perfect background to be a governor. So, but he's not the only one. Many of us need to get more politically active. But one of the things that's happening is that because that man has attempted to take over the educational curriculum, but it happened before him. They don't teach civics in high school anymore. I don't know if y'all remember. You do, of course. School.
House Rock.
It's
on
just
ABC.
a bill. It was only a bill. It was sitting on Capitol Hill, and young people.
And then junction. What's your function?
But I was talking to a young brother, and he was telling me the people in Texas should just go do their jobs. I said, "Do you understand the concept of gerrymandering?" Brother man, 26. He said, "No." I said, "Okay, at least you honest." I said, "Do you read the newspaper?" He said, "Every now and then." So the whole civics curriculum has been taken away. And because it's been taken away, there are a population who believe anything that man says. Add on to that the fact that they're creating what Marx called the reserve army of the unemployed. It's going to get to a point where people will do anything to get paid.
But that's the point now.
And that's what, so you add a 20-hour work requirement to get your Medicaid.
Wait a minute, Julian, Dr. Malveaux, that was my problem with volunteerism that was instituted during the Clinton years, and Attorney Mathis, because volunteerism, to me was, it's like you getting people to work on the cheap.
No, on the free.
Yeah, I mean, and see, but we're doing that, and I think we have got to really think our way through this and be clear on the game, because even the reason one of the things that we learned from being with Mayor Daley, my parents told me, the great gift, we didn't see it this way at the time, but being in Chicago was a gift, because we learned politics under a master,
Mm.
Richard Daley. And among the lessons they learned, because he is still the iconic mayor in the history of modern American politics, you never call your opposition's name. He never did that. The thing is, we're so consumed with this man's personality, which is bombastic and over the top, we're not looking at Peter Thiel, who, when he was a student at Stanford, who gave us Palantir, which is connected to intelligence, they are everything that we say and do, they have a hand in. He is someone who is from not South Africa, but from Southern Africa. Someone who made affirmative statements about apartheid when he was a student there. Mm-hmm. We're not asking about it. We're not asking about Elon Musk. What are your racial views, Elon? Well, you're trying to repopulate the earth as a natalist, but with white people. No. I mean, I'm not shading him. I'm just saying, wait a minute.
Well, you should shame him. I mean, he can afford how many has 27 kids. He can afford.
No, but he's doing it. There is a philosophy behind it. It's about white kids.
Whereas J.D. Vance wants to add incentives for people to give birth, but certain
white people,
exactly, certain people to give birth, they're not trying to have incentives for and them.
Yeah, but so I'm just saying, wait a minute, we're not looking at what the Trump team, because you know that the president is nothing but a front man.
Exactly, but you're exactly right. You make this point constantly, and it's an important point to make, because while we can focus on his shenanigans, his stupidity, his toxic tantrums, and all that, we can focus on that. But the fact is, how many times has he been bankrupt? Who bailed him out? Those are the people who are pulling his strings. He's not independently powerful. He's powerful because somebody is propping him up.
And so ask him. The person who directed his bankruptcies was Wilbur Mills, his commerce secretary in the first administration. We're not looking.
No,
I mean, was when Dorothy got to Oz, and she pulled back that curtain. She said, "So this is what's going on." I'm saying, I think we need to do that. We got to pull back the curtain. Otherwise, I think we're going to miss the point, because all the people who President Trump has brought in are J.D. Vance is 40. That's it. He brought in a whole. I mean, the
judges.
Secretary.
The judges. The judges are all the Supreme Court judges are all very young.
We're not, and we're looking
at they're 70. I'm not mad at you too.
We're looking at it. We're looking at an 80-year-old man who looks to be struggling in terms of his health. But we're not looking at the people. We don't even know what Palantir is. We don't know that they have a black, one of Peter Thiel's business partners is a black guy who is an absolute neocon. He's frightening when you listen to Alex Karp. Look him up, Alex Karp. Very interesting background, black mother, Jewish father. I mean, they have a carve out at Palantir. These people are anti-DEI, right? They have a carve out for kids who feel that they have been mistreated because of anti-Semitism. Look him up, Alex Karp. Look him up, and when you hear him talk, you will say, "Wow, he's a little unsettling." But you know what? I have a psychologist here. She's been in the background listening to all of us. That's frightening, Attorney Mathis. And Attorney Mathis is always very quiet. It's one of the things I appreciate about her. See, you let everybody know you crazy, Dr. Melville. That's all right. Janice stays lays in the cut.
You have to have opposites here. I mean, we are dear friends. You have to have opposites. Everybody can't be quiet.
Well, if I could just call our attention to one thing. The executive orders, as you all know, will expire at the end of the presidential term. But there have already been 50 pieces of legislation that would make the executive orders enforceable as law, as statutory law, have already passed the United States House of Representatives and are headed to the United States Senate. If we have a problem with the executive orders that will expire at the end of the current presidential term, we really need to posit what is the strategy for dealing with, and I say it's time to call United States Senator and say, we don't want these executive orders to become law. It's one thing for DEI to be a policy or anti-DEI to be a policy. It's something else for it to be a statute. And I know, lawyers make things more complicated than they need to be. But this is a factoid that's worth paying attention to. One United States representative based in Texas has introduced this legislation and quietly gotten it through the House of Representatives already. So it's time for us to pay attention to what's going on and hold the people accountable who say that they represent us.
A Dr. Latrice said he should unmute yourself. The impact. I mean, you're a community leader here in Chicago, and the impact. Many Black women had our households, and I don't know too many households that don't need two incomes anyway.
Right.
300,000 jobs inside of a quarter. That's like a shock, Dr. Melville and Attorney Mathis. Psychologically, what does that do to a home when you're short a check?
It is truly a monumental change that is impacting
pressure and tension.
The families on another level. I'm just thinking about my home. Just one income we couldn't sustain with one income. And even now, when I talk to my friends and people who have been impacted on their jobs and things like that, they're having issues having to pull their children back from school, from colleges. It's a traumatic effect. Even when I look into the eyes of, we'll just say my daughter that's a sophomore in college, and she sees the things that are being cut away, she's just completely devastated because it's making her wonder, should I go to community college? Should I change what I'm doing? And of course, as mothers, as parents, we're always saying, let us work it out. We can work it out. But it's a strain across the board. Everything is being impacted. So just imagine people losing their jobs, but now you look at the price of groceries, and then you look at the price of your utilities increasing. There is no way you cannot look to the right or left and not be affected by what's going on. And so people are going to have to start verbalizing what they're going through so that these things can reach those who are in a position to actually impact change. And we got to push them to do it.
Dr. LaShawn, I'm sure, because you are a very educated, informed woman, that all your paperwork is in order for your daughter. Because what has happened at the Department of Education is they've laid off so many people that student financial aid is in jeopardy. There are young people who are in the queue. Their financial aid has not yet been approved. Most HBCUs are going back to school next week or the week after. Some of the young people don't have their financial aid. Some parents don't like to fill out that FAFSA form, and it is a pain. But, even community college financial aid has been cut. They've changed all the rules about what a full-time student is. So a full-time student used to be 12 units. And I would often counsel young people who are not very academically adept to take 12 units instead of 15. Now they've changed a full-time student to 15 units. So some people are going to have challenges there. They've also cut how many a community college student will have to take at least 7.5 units to qualify for any federal financial aid. But many community college students are mature, untraditional students who go to school at night. Maybe they take 3 units, maybe they take 6. Now they're qualified for financial aid. So this is an attack. But that man likes ignorance. He said it more than once. Right. He must like it because he looks in the mirror often and sees it. But
but Dr. Melville, yes, if you listen to Vice President Vance, he said things. He has people in Appalachia. They do not like him because they feel that he's contemptuous of people.
He talks down to him.
He talks down, but so I'm saying, please let us look at the bigger picture here. When you if you listen to when someone asks Peter Thiel, are people necessary, and he hesitates. This was just in an interview a few weeks ago. Janice Mathis, he hesitated. Dr. Latrice, and the interviewer said, "You do believe people are necessary, don't you?" And he stuttered. This is what we do, and these people run. We're in a technocracy now. We need to know what we're dealing with. Trump has had his moment. He, girl, he's not even the point. The tech bros and sisters are running this thing, and we don't even know what they're doing. I'm just saying. I would beg us to take another look at who the wizards are behind this curtain.
Well, one of the things that we do know is that some of the technocracy is interested in disruption, that they pride themselves on being disruptors. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I predict, and others who are smarter than I are predicting, is that whole swaths of the economy will be made obsolete by technology. That what happens when trucks are fully autonomous? Where will people who want to drive trucks for a living go to work? What happens when you go to McDonald's? Now you order your meal from a machine.
Yeah.
There are no more parking attendants. You go to the grocery store, you check out your own groceries on a machine. What happens when all the jobs for creating the machines and tending the machines are taken up, but we've got people left over who need and want to work? Those are some of the questions that I think we'll be thinking about 10, 15, 20, even 50 years from now.
And
well, Dr. Malveaux,
those are going to be the people that are subscripted into unpaid work. The Project 2025 says we are a Judeo-Christian country. We believe in the power of work. Those who will not work will not have economic freedom. So that's what they basically are saying is, if you want to eat, Janice Mathis, you got to come. Remember the scene in The Color Purple where they made
Celie. No. Oprah's character. Not Celie. Oh my goodness. But yeah.
They made her go work for the white woman.
Sophia.
That's right.
Sophia.
But we're setting up the conditions by reducing education and elevating the notion of there is no safety net, which there is none. That anybody could be plucked out the street, you sent to debt prison, and it won't be debt prison. Those are already too full with immigrant people. It will be another way to extract surplus labor from people. Mm-hmm. That's what the long-term plan is. So, Janice, when you say who's going to drive the trucks, who wants to be a truck driver, the answer is going to be they will be changing the tires on the trucks for free.
But well, no, not for free. They just won't be paid for it.
That's right.
Because remember, the country was built on unpaid labor. We didn't work for free. We were just not paid. That's why the whole idea of reparations is so contentious, because then you have to attach a dollar figure to our work, and no one wants to do that. We didn't work for free. Get that out your vocabulary. We were not paid for the work we did. The Staples things had a song.
We were cheated.
When will we be paid for the work
as slaves?
Exactly.
And I mean, because this is devastating to have Black women gutted inside of a quarter. So wait a minute, and we are having, as we're watching the society change, we're watching the last person to really have been touched, to have been tasked by Dr. King, is moving into the sunset, and that's Reverend Jesse Jackson. I don't say that with any joy. That's my daddy. But I'm clear that he's done his work. He's still here because God has some other things for him to do, but he's done his work. What are we going to do to advocate?
Well,
because I see him going into places, Julian and Dr. and Janice, you were talking about this. They wildly applaud and cheer. These are the same people who 10 years ago, or even 5 when he was still on his feet, who rolled their eyes and sucked their teeth when he walked in the room until they needed a job or until they needed to keep their job.
Come on now. That part. That part. And the other part of that is when you look at Reverend Jackson and his just illustrious, cataclysmically amazing career. When you look at that and you look at Reverend Jackson, the question is now who's going to take the weight? Because there are a whole lot of people who are Jackson acolytes, but they're not Jackson activists.
No names.
A lot of people who call his name. They say that they were proteges and they were this and they were that. But where's your work? I mean, I could call a roll,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to because
Please don't. Thank you.
I'm capable of reasonable discretion on an occasional basis.
No, but wait a minute, because what people miss about Reverend, which is your point, and Janice knows this because he's all worked us to the bone, is his incredible work ethic.
Yes.
I mean, wait a minute. I have on more than one occasion started a day in New York with him where he worked 5 or 6 hours. We get on a plane, get to Chicago, 5 or 6 hours, and he'd end his day in LA, 5 or 6 hours, and then he's up at 5, and we're going. People don't know when he ran for president, we had more than 70 push satellite offices.
Mm-hmm.
The man was already one of the 3 most admired men in the world by all Americans by 1982, 83. That was in the late 70s. Janice, you can say it because you've been there. I mean, you know the work that has gone into this advocacy, which is the point. Oh, wait a minute, you're still muted, Janice.
The thing that impressed me most as a 30-something-year-old was that by the time I got up and got dressed and got to work around 9 o'clock, he had already read 3 or 4 newspapers and had assignments for what you needed to do that day about it. And so I saw the incredible intellectual exercise that went into, and people I think heard the rhymes, keep hope alive and all that, and they thought it was poetry, and it is, but it was also a way of distilling very important ideas into bite-sized, consumable bits that people could relate to and remember. And I think we are remiss if we don't preserve and protect that heritage, which is why I'm still doing what I do.
In furtherance of your point, I always knew that there was something going on when my father wanted to drive me by himself. It always frightened me to death because when I was growing up, he had a lot of security and he needed it. So this particular morning, he drove me to school as opposed to having this man who he had assigned to take me to school in the morning because I like to be at school by 6:30 a.m. And he had a 6:30 meeting downtown with the chairman of the board of Standard Oil of Indiana. I'll never forget this. So as we're riding along the lakefront, because my high school was not that far from there, he said, "Baby, do you notice anything about the buildings?" And I looked. I think I shared this story with you all before. I said, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. I said, "What is it, Daddy?" He said, "Baby, look again." And he put his hand up as he was driving. He said, "Do you see all the lights at the top of the buildings? They're all on, aren't they?" I said, "Yes, they are." He said, "Yeah." He said, "The people who run the world are up before everybody and they're in bed after everybody." He said, "I'm meeting with the chairman of the board of Standard Oil of Indiana today. And the only time in his day and mine that we can meet is for a 6:30 a.m. breakfast." Mm-hmm. Never forget that. My parents used to get us up in at 10 or 11 at night when we first moved into our house. We were 7, I was 7. And it was a neighborhood full of prosperous people, but my parents never wanted us to get caught up in that because I never even thought about it. These were just people I knew. They were my friends. They got us up and we went to the guest room and we would see our next door neighbors. It was a white family. And this man was a very prominent doctor. And his sons were up, Dr. Malveaux and Attorney Mathis. They were studying late into the night and they were like 12 and 13. And my father said, "Those are the people with whom you'll be competing. Do you see how hard you have to work?" So please, my parents had to come to my room and tell me to go to bed. I got that. I figured it out. And I think we need to understand that we also have to do what works. When you look at Italian Americans, they come into the United States building restaurants. They embrace their culture and they make it work for them. Greeks do the same thing. Different people, they do what they do and they make it work. I think that it's high time that black folks do that too. I don't want to be blocked from the professional tracks, but I think we need to do both and.
But
And
Santita, when you
mhm,
begin to compare black people to immigrant people, you have to be mindful of the laws that prevented us. At the end of
absolutely.
at the end of Reconstruction, we had black people at the beginning of at the end of enslavement. Black people had $1 for every $36 that white people had. By 1900, it was $1 for every $16 that white people had, which means we cut the wealth gap in half
Yeah.
in about 35 years. But now we have roughly $1 for every $10 white people have. So we made more relative progress at the early days than we have now.
And what were we
Why
doing?
is that? Because there are laws that were passed to prevent us from accumulating. There are two black men in Paris, Texas, who, because I'm writing about lynching, which is making me even crazier, Janice Mathis. So, but anyway, two black men in Paris, Texas in 1893. Both of them owned property. The white people went to them and said, "You have to sign your property over to us."
Absolutely.
The younger one said, "Oh, hell no." They lynched him. The
Yeah.
older one, the one was in his 30s. The other one was in his 60s. They lynched him. One of the white reporters wrote an article. He said, "Well, we had to lynch the young guy because he was very arrogant. But the old man was going to die and we could have taken his property anyway. So we really didn't have to lynch him." That was the attitude. We could not accumulate. And so when you talk about Greek people starting restaurants, Italians starting restaurants,
That's
anytime we had 5 cents, somebody figured out how to steal it. Now that's not
but,
true in
but
contemporary terms, but when you look at our history, you look at the
absolutely.
wealth gap as a function of lynching, of the function of the fact that we did not have to be treated like human beings, and if you had something, they could take it. If
And,
you
and,
had
point, and
a,
point well taken, because the first time a bomb was dropped in the United States was dropped on black people in Tulsa.
absolutely,
But
and that was nothing more than economic envy. That was nothing more than economic.
absolutely.
Black people had too much.
All I'm saying is what I want us to do is I don't want us to shut any doors, Dr. Melville. I'm aware of that, and I think that I know that you're not. I know that you're right. The facts are indisputable. I'm saying though, I want us to open all doors so that we can make it.
There's no dispute about that. We not, like James. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open the door and I'll get it myself.
Yeah, yeah,
You
but
know,
no, but sometimes I
there's
think we
nothing
just
wrong
have
with
to
that,
say,
but we have to be mindful. I don't like comparisons of black people to immigrants,
I,
especially to European immigrants.
no, I
Because
get you.
we were given, like Dr. King said,
Mhm.
first we gave them land.
That's right.
We passed a land grant act to teach them how to till the land. Then we gave them loans so they could borrow money to get the equipment for the land. Now, meanwhile, black folk doing all that got nothing. So you cannot. It's
That's
not.
not what I'm saying. You're talking economically. I'm talking about culturally. I'm saying because it was illegal for us to learn to read and write. Sometimes we have abandoned the vocational track. I'm saying I want us to open that door once again. That's all that I'm saying. I'm
We can do both
absolutely
and. We can do both and.
yeah, no, but I'm saying that. I'm saying the and. I'm trying to get the and in.
Well, the and comes not by comparing us to immigrants.
But
The and
no. I wasn't comparing us. I was saying looking at what they do because they looked at us. Because these are the folks when they came in, Italians and Irish and German people, when they came in, no one wanted to hire them. They hired us first.
well,
And we
that's not exactly the Irish and the African Americans were equally hated, but the Irish got
absolutely.
certain jobs before we did, and all them immigrants, the first thing they learned when they got here was how to use the N word. Toni
I
Morrison.
trust me. No, me, but I know. I got aunts and uncles who who got it. And my grandparents, my great grandparents are Italians, and they're also they're Italian, they're black, and they're Irish and they're black. And I get it because these people because they were at the bottom. I get it. I'm not trying to say that we have no one in their right mind would ever say that blacks we're the ones who get everybody to become white. No
Exactly.
white people, nobody else can become white in America. Nobody. So I get it. I'm just simply saying I want us to open all doors so that we can we can figure out a way to make it, because clearly this government door has been closed to us. These corporate doors have been closed. We can fight to open them, but it's going to be tough. I don't know. I'm everybody should have their say, who like the place is before we go. Because I want to have some more talks like this because I think we need to have them. Hey Bernadette, hey Michael, hey Miss Wanda, hey Robert, shalom. And let me see who else. And so many of you are here, and I don't want to miss anyone, but you know I will. And I don't mean to. Cindy, you remember Cindy, right? Janice Mathis, Dr. Julian Malvo, we love you, Cindy, from Rainbow Push in New York.
Oh, wow.
Paula, my easy peasy. Carol Soskin, sending you all so much love, so much love. Dr. Latrice, as we're looking at this, I am not, we might be knocked down, but I don't think that we're out. Dr. LaShawn Latrice.
I don't think we're not. I don't think we're out either. I think that this is a time for us to become stronger. These perilous times that we're in are causing us to become far more knowledgeable of what our options are. And I think instead of reverting to fear, I think people are going to revert to trying to take action. And what we have to do is it's up to us to inform people that may not know, have conversations, very intentional conversations, because we're going to have to try to decrease the trauma that is existing around us right now. And there's a lot of trauma brewing from community to community, especially with people who are not necessarily knowing how these changes are impacting them. And so I think just having these conversations continuously is going to make a huge difference. And it's going to push people, to push those who they've elected and put in authority to make these changes. We got to hold these people accountable.
We do. Attorney Janice Mathis, National Council of Negro Women. Whoo, what would Dorothy Height say? Mary McLeod Bethune. Wow.
Santita, what I was just thinking is that Project 2025 has three basic tenets. Increase the power of the presidency, not the person, but the office of president. Make the presidency a tool of the person who's holding the office. Suppress the press, go after people who dare to criticize you, and undermine the civil service. I think one of the consequences we're going to see of these massive layoffs of Black women is that expertise is walking out the door. Mm-hmm. And it won't be long before that expertise will be required, because the people who have been in government the longest are the people who know how to make it work.
Dr. Julianne Malveaux.
Power concedes nothing without a demand, said Frederick Douglass. It never did and it never will. Those who want freedom without agitation are like those who want the ocean without its mighty roar. We must agitate, agitate, agitate. We may be knocked down, but we're not out. And not only that, we have to remember that we are relatively better off than our foremothers and fathers were. When we start complaining about being laid off, think about Daniel Murray, brilliant brother who was demoted as library. They still have a Daniel Murray collection at the Library of Congress because he collected pamphlets and flyers and all of that stuff. It's still there. So think of that. Think of Mrs. Bethune, who started a college with $1.50. I was about to say $150. Oh, she would have been in fool's heaven if she had that much money. She had a couple of pencils and $1.50. Think about.
And when the Klan came to visit, when the Klan came to intimidate her, she lined the students up and they sang hymns until they went away embarrassed.
Mrs. Bethune. Now,
my favorite kind of courage that we may be summoned to muster now.
My favorite Bethune story is when she went to the White House to visit President Roosevelt, and one of the white boys said to her, "How are you doing, Auntie?" And she pulled herself up and said, "Which one of my brother's children are you?" That just cracks me up, because they like to call us out of our name, Auntie, George, if you're a Pullman porter. But she's like, "Oh no, we're not having that today." We have got resistance in our blood and in our roots, and we can't forget that. I mean, I think some of our young people Forget, they need to be taught. That's why reparations is so important. Do I think the United States of America is going to write Black folks a check? No, but here's what I do think. The more we talk about reparations, the more we understand what our history is. And some local jurisdictions, Evanston, Illinois, has already been distributing reparations. Wonderful young sister Robin Ruth Simmons spearheaded that. Asheville, North Carolina is doing some work. New York now has a commission. So when we're talking reparations, it's more than money, it's a mindset.
Absolutely. And understanding that we are the creditors here, not the debtors.
Exactly.
I was about to say, Santita, it's acknowledgement of the debt.
Absolutely.
What I always say is
Acknowledgement
we're
of debt.
philanthropists. Black America is a philanthropic institute to basically assist inept white people who didn't even know how to feed their own children, had to give Black women breasts to sustain their children. So we are philanthropists.
We are that. May I leave you with some words from Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, her last will and testament? Sometimes as I sit communing in my study, I feel that death is not far off. I'm aware that it will overtake me before the greatest of my dreams, full equality for the Negro in our time, is realized. Yet, I face that reality without fear or regrets. I am resigned to death, as all humans must be at the proper time. Death neither alarms nor frightens one who has had a long career of fruitful toil. The knowledge that my work has been helpful to many fills me with joy and great satisfaction. And she went on to tell you that I leave you love. Love builds, it is positive and helpful, it is more beneficial than hate. I leave you hope that Negroes' growth will be great in the years to come. I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. As long as Negroes are hemmed into racial blocks by prejudice and pressure, it will be necessary for them to band together for economic betterment. I leave you a thirst for education. Knowledge is the prime need of the hour more and more. Negroes are taking full advantage of hard-won opportunities for learning, and the educational level of the Negro population is at its highest point in history. I leave you respect for the uses of power. We live in a world which respects power above all things. Power intelligently directed can lead to more freedom. I leave you faith. Faith is the first factor in a life devoted to service. Without faith, nothing is possible. With it, nothing is impossible. I leave you racial dignity. I want Negroes to maintain their humanity at all costs. We as Negroes must recognize that we are the custodians as well as the heirs of a great civilization. I leave you a desire to live harmoniously with your fellow men. The problem of color is worldwide. It is found in Africa, Asia, Europe, and South America. I appeal to American Negroes, North, South, East, and West, to recognize their common problems and unite to solve them. I leave you, finally, a responsibility to our young people. The world around us really belongs to youth, for youth will take over its future management. If I have a legacy to leave my people, it is my philosophy of living and serving. As I face tomorrow, I am content, for I think I have spent my life well. I pray now that my philosophy may be helpful to those who share my vision of a world of peace, progress, brotherhood, and love. I want to thank each of you, heroines of mine, each one of you. Attorney Janice Mathis, whose father was a father to mine, who looked for a father for a lifetime. And I thank you for sharing your father with me, with mine, who needed one so desperately. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, thank you for being my big sister, my sister. You've been a leading light in my life. You've driven me crazy, but I love you. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I want to thank you for showing me how to get up when you've been knocked down, and for producing such a beautiful family, all of you. Thank you for being part of my family. Thank you for being part of my life, and everyone, and particularly our Black brothers and sisters, and our sisters in particular. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. God does not know how to do anything but succeed. And you are God's vision. And God never made a vision without making provision. There's something that God sent you to do in this world. Get out and do it. The way is already there for you. It's been made for you. Now go out and make it happen. But we can only do it together. We can only do it together. I'm Santita Jackson. May God bless you. I love you all. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you.